Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Twitter file legends Michael Shellenberger and Matt Taibbi point out the proof of the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. They claim that this was clear long ago, but the information was not shared with the public, and it's still unclear who in the U.S. government had access to this information. The Federal Reserve has left interest rates unchanged for the first time in over a year, but they signal that there will still be 2 more rate hikes this year. Belarus is set to receive nuclear weapons that they say will only be used as a deterrent against foreign attacks. The Swiss government and railway was hit by a cyber attack. The group demanded a ransom and published some of the stolen data on the darknet. Experts warn that the Chinese government is also likely to instigate cyber attacks against U.S. infrastructure if a conflict between the U.S. and China occurs. And right after this warning, today the U.S. government was hit in a global hacking campaign that exploited a vulnerability in widely used software. But it looks like China will not be an economic threat to the U.S. in the coming years, with the Chinese economy suffering after the COVID-0 lockdowns. Okay, let's get into it. According to an investigation by journalists Michael Shellenberger and Matt Taibbi, the first people who were affected by COVID-19 symptoms were scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In an interview on Wednesday, journalist Michael Shellenberger explained that these scientists fell ill during their research on coronaviruses.
Not only did we confirm that the virus came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China, we also were able to name the first 3 people sickened by the virus. These were the 3 scientists that were working with the closest relative of the coronavirus that was ultimately modified through what's called gain-of-function research, which makes it more infectious.
Shellenberger argued that it's outrageous that we didn't know this until now, that it had to be leaked to reporters rather than being disclosed by the government, despite many people in the U.S. government knowing about it.
Important to remember that Anthony Fauci went around President Obama's ban on this research. We banned this research in the United States in 2014. They circumvented that ban by taking this research to China. The people who got sick were doing the research that a U.S. Contractor called EcoHealth Alliance had proposed to do for DARPA. They had said, well, we didn't get the funding for that research, but we now know that that research did go forward in the Wuhan lab. So there's some really serious questions about when did the United States government know this? When did Anthony Fauci know this? When did EcoHealth Alliance know this? It's very hard to believe that these 3 scientists got sick and that senior members of the American medical establishment did not know that.
Not only the information about the sick Wuhan Institute of Virology workers has not been shared with the public yet, it's still unclear who in the U.S. government had access to the information. So, of course, the main point about this topic is censorship.
There was disinformation spread about this issue. We now can confirm definitively that it came from a lab, and the first 3 scientists sickened by it were the ones who were working to engineer the virus in the first place. The evidence that we're citing, we felt very confident about. One of our sources, we pressed this person and they said 100% certainty. So this is definitive. We know who got sick. We know that they were the ones working with this virus. So there was a huge cover-up. I mean, that's the bottom line. And we need to know who knew about this, when they knew about it, why they were engaged in this cover-up. We still don't know the truth of this, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
According to the report, next week the Directorate of National Intelligence is expected to release another report which was previously classified material, and the upcoming report may include the names of the 3 Wuhan Institute of Virology scientists. This news comes out right before the Secretary of State Antony Blinken travels to China this week to meet with the Chinese Communist leadership. Blinken is expected to meet with senior Chinese officials during a series of meetings in Beijing on June 18th and June 19th. However, despite the State Department's claims that the visit is aimed at guardrailing the 2 powers' increasingly bitter competition, we will have to wait and see if this new report will impact the United States and China relations. The Federal Reserve has left interest rates unchanged for the first time in over a year, but they signaled that there will still be 2 more rate hikes this year. The Federal Open Market Committee members said that the recent metrics show that economic activity is expanding at a modest pace. The rate-setting committee also confirmed that it would continue decreasing its holdings of Treasury and mortgage-backed securities. Looking ahead to the broader economy, the Fed forecasts that the economy will grow by 1% this year. This is up from the March projection of 0.4%. Officials revised their 2024 real GDP forecast from 1.2% to 1.1%. The economy will also grow by 1.8%, which is down from 1.9% in 2025. The unemployment rate was seen as coming in at 4.1%, which is down from the previous projection of 4.5%. The unemployment rate was also revised lower to 4.5% in 2024 and 2025, which is down from 4.6%. Stocks tumbled after the Fed's announcement, but they rebounded during Fed Chair Jerome Powell's news conference. Jeff Klingenhofer, the co-chair of investment at Thornburg Investment Management, said in a note that the Fed caused heartburn with their estimates of future rates, implying their concerns for high inflation outweighs the softening in growth we are experiencing. Klingenhofer added, "The most concerning data point for markets is the significant rise in the ending target for the Fed funds rate, which moved up a full 50 basis points to 5.6%. While some may characterize the central bank's decision as a skip, Jerome Powell declined to call it that. According to Powell, an interest rate cut is unlikely until inflation falls significantly, and he believes that could take a couple of years. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said that he would not hesitate to deploy Russian tactical nuclear weapons if his country faced an aggression. Earlier this year, Vladimir Putin announced the planned deployment of short-range nuclear weapons. And yesterday, Lukashenko said the country started taking deliveries of these Russian nuclear weapons. While Putin has emphasized that Russia will retain control of them, Lukashenko's statement contradicted that. Lukashenko, who is known for his blustery statements, said that, "God forbid I have to make a decision to use those weapons today, but there would be no hesitation if we face an aggression." Lukashenko also emphasized that it was he who asked Putin to deploy the Russian nuclear weapons to Belarus, and it was not the other way around. He argued that it was necessary in order to prevent a potential attack. Lukashenko said, "I believe no one would be willing to fight a country that has those weapons. Those are weapons of deterrence." Lukashenko said that Belarus doesn't need Russia's strategic nuclear weapons to be deployed to its territory. He also declared, "Am I going to fight America? No." However, he added that Belarus was preparing facilities for intercontinental nuclear-tipped missiles just in case. Belarus, along with Ukraine and Kazakhstan, hosted a significant share of Soviet nuclear weapons during the Soviet era. Under a U.S.-sponsored deal, those weapons were transferred to Russia after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. It's unclear how many tactical nuclear weapons would be delivered to Belarus. The U.S. government believes that Russia has about 2,000 tactical nuclear weapons. These weapons include bombs that can be carried by aircraft, and they also include warheads for short-range missiles and artillery rounds. Lukashenko has been in power for 29 years, and he has relied on Russia's political and economic support to survive. He has also been subjected to months of protests, mass arrests, and Western sanctions following the latest 2020 election that many believe was rigged. The websites of several Swiss federal agencies and state-linked companies were inaccessible on Monday, June the 12th. This was due to a cyber attack. The Swiss authorities announced that specialists in the federal administration quickly noticed the attack and were taking measures to restore accessibility to websites and applications as quickly as possible. According to the finance ministry, the sites were hit by a so-called DDoS attack. DDoS attacks aim to overload websites and applications with targeted requests in order to make the sites unreachable. However, no data was damaged in the DDoS attack. The pro-Russian hacker group No Name has claimed responsibility for the attack on the federal government. It made this claim on its own Telegram channel. This group was also behind the attack on the Swiss Parliament website last week. The Swiss Federal Railway was also affected by an earlier online attack against the IT company called Xplane. Xplane provides services to the federal departments. The National Railway Company confirmed to the Swiss news agency that data had been stolen after a ransomware attack. Authorities said that a small volume of operational data linked to air protocols that were analyzed by Xplane were affected by the leak, as well as commercial correspondence. The attack on Xplane that was revealed on May 23rd has had far-reaching consequences. It has affected the Federal Office of Police and the Federal Office of Customs and Border Protection. There's also a possibility that operational data was affected along with business documents. After encrypting the stolen data and then demanding a ransom from the company, the hackers reportedly published some of the data on the darknet. Reportedly, this attack was carried out by the Play Group. The Play Group is the same group that recently targeted the Swiss media companies. There has been a surge in cybercrime in recent years in Switzerland. Cyber attackers have hacked several Swiss private and public targets. These include Swiss media groups, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and Swiss municipalities. Actually, cybercrime is not just a Swiss phenomenon. A senior U.S. cybersecurity official has also warned that if a conflict breaks out with the United States, Chinese state hackers will almost certainly conduct aggressive cyber attacks to disrupt critical U.S. infrastructure. This includes infrastructure such as pipelines and railways. Jen Easterly, who is serving as the director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, noted that while malign activities from Chinese state actors focused on espionage, Beijing's efforts now have increasingly shifted towards disruption and destruction. Late last month, Microsoft and various cybersecurity agencies also revealed that a Chinese cyber espionage group has, for at least 2 years, been conducting a campaign that is targeting a wide span of U.S. sectors. This includes manufacturing, telecommunication, government, maritime utility, transportation, and education. Recently, FBI Director Christopher Wray, who appeared before the House Appropriations Committee, said that the Chinese hackers outnumber the FBI cyber personnel by at least 50-1. The cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, in its latest report on cyber threats, also said that China-linked cyber espionage groups are targeting 39 industries on nearly every continent. Most of these campaigns targeted China's Asian neighbors, but about 25% targeted North America. In a State Department briefing on June 13th, spokesperson Matthew Miller cited a March intelligence community report noting that China almost certainly is capable of launching cyber attacks that could disrupt critical infrastructure services within the United States. This includes attacks against oil and gas pipelines and rail systems. He added, "It's vital for government network defenders and for the public to stay vigilant. It's why the U.S. government, in a whole-of-government action, has worked with the private sector to prepare private sector defenses." And right after this warning, today the U.S. government was hit in a global hacking campaign that exploited a vulnerability in widely used software, but they don't expect it to have any significant impact. The online extortion group PSYOP, which has claimed credit for the Move It hack, posted on their website, "If you are a government, city, or police service, do not worry, we erased all your data." After years of lockdowns and suppressed economic output, economists and investors cheered the end of Beijing's zero-COVID policy. They thought that the economy boom was sure to follow. It was predicted that the Chinese consumer was about to become massive. This was actually great news for the whole world, since everyone would benefit from China's economy getting healthy. But now, 6 months later, Wall Street's dreams are turning into a nightmare. Forget an economic explosion. Even China's recovery from COVID has been weak. So far, industrial production has been disappointing. Both imports and exports have slowed significantly. There's also debt everywhere, especially in property development, which makes up 30% of the economy. And There are a variety of reasons why trading partners are upset, from human rights abuses, including the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners, Christians, and Uyghurs, to the government's involvement in trade. China's working age population is also getting old, and there are fewer young people to replace them. Exports remain key to the economy, but countries have turned from globalism to protectionism. In addition, while Wall Street put on a good face, banks like JP Morgan are asking clients whether it's even worth it to invest in the Chinese market. There are also a number of other big-time investors who have abandoned China. For instance, the legendary hedge fund manager Stanley Druckenmiller, who is a longtime believer in China growth, he described the entrepreneurial energy in China before COVID as New York on crack. Now he has changed his mind. During the Bloomberg Investment Conference in June, Druckenmiller predicted an uncertain future for China. Druckenmiller said, "Looking out 10 or 15 years, I just don't see it. Unless there is a change in power at the top, I think that's going to be a very undynamic economy." He added, "We're expecting a sugar high and some kind of robust growth there for the next 6 to 9 months. But looking out, I do not look at them as a big challenge to the U.S. in terms of economic power and growth." A Business Insider report concluded that inside of the booming recovery that Wall Street was expecting, we are witnessing the Chinese economic miracle dying. We also discussed a similar topic on our membership site. We explained how the U.S. bank woes are even deepened more with their ties in China, and why China is no longer an investment priority. I'll put the link in the description below, and here's the trailer. Elon Musk's view on free speech and making money may be incomprehensible to some people. Elon Musk has publicly stated, "I will say what I want even if it costs me." Shouldn't a businessman focus on financial gain? Human rights, free speech, Second Amendment rights, aren't these the jobs of politicians and protesters? These are the guidelines that have become more and more accepted in the business world over the past few decades. Stay away from politics, don't make deviant statements, and always follow the public trend. This is what modern business people believe in. So, how far can you go with these principles in running a business? Does staying away from politics guarantee that you will make a fortune? This is what they would have you believe, especially in China. We'll go into more details on our membership site at frontpageshow.com. I hope to see you there. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.